But
So
okay,
yeah.
so you are the son of a professor, which my mom is a college professor, and then you're also the son of a pediatric nurse. So when little Grant was growing up, did he know that he was going to be an entertainer?
Yeah, it's funny. Like I didn't think about it in terms of my career ever, is how I always kind of talk about that, where my parents probably knew. Like I was just playing dress up, I guess, with like from movie characters and making
Yeah.
my siblings do it with me. And I got into tap dancing as like an 8-year old, and started doing theater at 10. And yeah, it was just always what I loved to do. And it consumed my imagination and my imaginary playtime at home. And I honestly didn't think like this is my career until I was like probably a freshman in college. And I was like, paying to study theater. And
Yeah.
that's when you kind of have to make that decision. But it's all I've ever loved and all I've ever done. So yeah.
So that's crazy. So when did you start to get like recognition where people are like, okay, I know he's been tap dancing around the house, but like he's actually really good.
It was my mom. I mean, my mom is all she was never a stage mom, she was never hovering over me and like making me
Mhm.
do things I didn't want to do. But she saw kind of my passions really before I had acknowledged what those passions were. And she really helped me channel those things. Like I was obsessed with um Savion Glover as a kid. I forget how I even discovered him, but I was obsessed with Savion Glover and the movie Singing in the Rain and
Oh
Gene Kelly
yeah.
in particular. And I would watch it again and again and again. And she made me go to a tap class. I resisted at first, but she knew I would love it, and she got me into a tap class. And then I at every stage I always had to have some mentor kind of like push me in the right direction as a kid, just because I've always been shy, and I don't like to fail, and I don't like to be embarrassed, and I feel like I
Yeah.
always had to
That's
have people encourage me to get out there and do what I clearly love to do.
no, that's I think that's all of us. And
Yeah.
that's how my son is, by the way. But what would you consider your first big role? And the reason I asked that is because I've talked to a lot of different actors and actresses, and like Vivica Fox, what I thought her first big role was, she was like, no, to me, my first big role was this. So what was your first like into you big role?
I mean, really, if we want to break it down like that, I was 11 and I had been doing theater for about community theater for
Uh-huh.
about a year at that point. And I'd been like tap dancing for a few years. And our theater company, the Hurrah Players in Norfolk, Virginia, was doing a version of like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and
Okay.
Willy Wonka. I forget what we actually called it because it probably wasn't 100% like sanctioned, like legal production, because
Yeah.
it was like the movie on stage, and and I was Charlie, and it was like the first time,
Oh.
getting to like do this, be a big role on stage. And that's probably when I really really fell in love with being on stage and playing a character. And that's ultimately when I knew that's what I wanted to do, even if I wasn't really thinking about it in those terms. Like
Yeah.
ever since then, I mean, I've never thought about doing anything else with my life really.
That's beautiful. And so a lot of these things we talked about tap dancing, but you're actually a singer and an actor. And so
Yeah.
for you, did you ever have to kind of choose an avenue like, all right, I'm going to pursue the act? Was it always acting, or did you always want to sing and act, or what was that thought process like?
I was never like I was not naturally gifted singer by any means. I still don't think of myself as like I can sing. I can like, I can get
Yes,
by,
you
but I
can
know a lot of
sing.
like I know a lot of amazing singers that like that's like
Yeah.
their calling and like that's their true talent.
Yeah.
And I'm not that. Like I can pull it off for roles, but I'm never
Yeah.
gonna have like a singing career. I'm never gonna be like an artist in that sense. And I think like dance was the first thing that really spoke to me and that I was probably the most naturally gifted at. Um, and I think I thought that like my trajectory, my career path was more along the lines of being like in the ensemble of like Broadway shows and whatnot, and hopefully
Wow.
eventually getting to like be a lead on Broadway or something. But I mean, my first like big professional gig was Baby John in West Side Story, who's just like one of the
Yeah.
Jets, and that dancing's really tough. And I took a lot of ballet and all kinds of dance growing up. And I think dancing is what I kind of focused on the most through high school and college, thinking like that's what I was best at. But somewhere in high school, and definitely more so I only did 2 years of college before I got West Side and left to do that. But
Yeah.
I shifted my focus to acting, and I knew that that was more like, I didn't like going to dance class. I didn't like doing the work
Yeah.
that was required to like be a
Yeah.
great dancer.
Right.
And I was much more interested in working on the craft of acting. So I guess around when I was like 18, I think it kind of shifted to knowing that's more where my real passion was for the arts.
No, I
But it's
love
nice
that.
I
And
now have like
so,
dance and singing in my back pocket, and I can pull
yeah,
it out.
like you can sing. I don't hear anything else about that. You can sing because I'm going to bring up you were on Glee, and to me that looks like the funnest set ever to be a part of. You're singing and dancing, all everybody's just breaking out in song. I feel like that's what I want my life to be. What was it like being on that set?
It was surreal. I had never really been on TV like that. I'd done a few like
Yeah.
local or regional things as a kid growing up, like commercials and stuff that were like Virginia commercials. But nothing like that. And I was 21 when I got it. Had been touring with West Side for the year. And I met my manager, who I'm still with. We've been together for like
Awesome.
10, 11 years now. 10 years, I guess. Yeah. And he saw me in West Side and reached out to me, and we started working together, sending in audition tapes for stuff. And I sent one in for Glee for an episode I didn't get. And they kept me in mind for this role that came up that I eventually got. And my West Side tour was in Costa Mesa at the time. So I like took a train down and auditioned in the room and could like to LA to audition and got
Uh-huh.
it. And I had like 2 weeks left on my year tour of West Side, and the producers let me out to go do this gig. Like, let me out. I was about to be done in 2 weeks
That's
anyway, so they let
awesome.
me leave
Yeah.
early. And so I'm in LA, like, for 12 hours, and then I'm on set, and it's, kind of a whirlwind. And I'm working with Chris Colfer and Darren Chris on my first day, who were two of the main guys. And
Yeah.
I was tripping. I was like, I like,
I
I was,
was about to ask that. Like what? Like what? You just all of a sudden
yeah,
on a Hollywood set.
yeah. And it's crazy. They shoot at Paramount, which is like a real lot. And it's like a
Yeah.
real Hollywood kind of experience. Like,
Yeah.
and it's just, there's no singing or dancing that day. It's just a scene with
Yeah.
Chris and Darren. And they were both so sweet and helpful. And Darren even gave me like a set 101 book to kind of help me out. And we had a lot of
Oh,
mutual friends. He called me the day before and really helped me like not freak out, which was, awesome of him.
yeah.
Because you don't know anything. Like, you're hearing all these terms thrown out from like, what this person's job is and that person's job, and what they're doing with lenses and what they're doing with lighting,
It
it's
could be a
so
foreign
hard
language
coming
almost if you don't know it.
100%. Yeah. And like, even though I'd been acting for a long time, it had all been on stage, and to suddenly just like pretend like the camera's not there, and it's, at times like
Yeah.
6 inches from your face, and there's way more people just in your eye line, and it's so different than being on stage. And to
Yeah.
shake that, honestly, it took me like probably like a year of Flash even before I was really used to like ignoring like all that stuff being in front of you. It's just so different.
Unbelievable. We can't
Yeah.
tell. I'm gonna tell you right now, we couldn't tell. And also on that set, Naya Rivera and you did a ensemble to Smooth Criminal, and my
But yeah.
sentiments to the Rivera family. But tell us a
Yeah.
little, like, talk about that. Just using your talents, because I think you don't think you're a singer. You think you're a good dancer. We know that you can do everything, Grant. But just talk about, because you kind of hit the scene quick and you displayed all of your talent. So now people know, oh, he can dance, he can sing, he can act.
Hmm.
Like for you, did you like a lot of people, fear not being taken serious? Were you worried about like a certain typecast role by doing that?
I mean, I think I still like, worry about that in a sense of like, because all I've done is like Flash for this long, and you never know what's
Yeah.
next, like this could be it for my career. I can do nothing after this.
Oh,
But it was, getting to do that. I wasn't thinking about that kind of thing at all when I was on Glee. I was just kind of mostly in the moment because that was all I could be. It was just like, I couldn't believe what was happening. And it all
right.
happens really quick. That show was a machine. And they don't have a lot of rehearsal time. You record the music like a day or two before you go in to film it. So then when you're filming it, they've got it's like a flip track, and it's yourself singing, and you're like singing or lip
Mhm.
syncing to it for the camera. So what you hear in the final product is what we recorded in the studio.
Right.
um, and we didn't rehearse that song, the number Smooth Criminal, at all. Like because all we're
What?
circling the chairs and moving chairs out of the way, and it was all about
So
like,
that's like impromptu. Like that's all just like,
I mean, I wouldn't call it improv. It was like we got there, and like you do like on Flash, like we'll get there, at 8 in the morning or whatever. You block a scene at 8:30 after some hair and makeup, and then
okay.
at like 9 you're filming. So like it all happens really quick. And
Yeah.
so for Smooth Criminal, it was like that, where we got there and we're like, so we got these chairs in a circle, and I want you guys, it was like described as like cat and mouse, like you're going to be kind of like looking at each other and circling the chairs and breaking through different levels and getting closer and closer and closer until you're in each other's faces. So then we just kind of like blocked it out, and it wasn't a free for all once we were filming, but it was, we
Yeah.
kind of knew our paths. But yeah, we figured
That's
that
a
out
quick
all that.
learning curve. That's a
Yeah,
really quick
yeah,
learning curve. My
yeah,
goodness. That's like us practicing, learning the play. And then that night, all right, run all the plays that we learned today. Like, what?
totally,
That's
totally.
crazy. Okay. So, since we're talking about the Flash, I want to just go into that a little more. When you took that role 7 years ago, did you think it would get to 7 seasons? Like, like when you started out, did they already know there was a certain level that it was going to go to? Like, what was it like getting that major role?
It was great. I mean, I didn't want to audition at first because again, like I don't like to fail. I'm like pretty shy. Like, and I didn't think I stood a chance in hell to get the role. First of all, I was, like I said, 23, I think, when I went to the audition, and the character was described as late 20s, early 30s, and I look
Mm.
young for my age. Like,
Yeah.
especially then, I looked maybe 21, maybe.
You still look
Um,
young.
I know, like, and it's so I was like, I'm skinny, like I'm like I have no business playing this role. I shouldn't even waste their time in audition. And he's blonde in the comics, all these things in my head that like it's not good to
Yeah.
have in your head as an actor going to an audition, because it's like ultimately what the biggest thing I've learned is like only I can bring myself to the table. Nobody else has that to offer. So like if they
Yep.
want me for the role, then like I was meant to have the role. But at the time, all I'm thinking is like, how can I be what they want? How, because I'm not like how I see this guy. I'm not a superhero. Um, so, but after my first audition, I knew pretty quickly that like, oh, like they're like actually kind of interested in me for this. Like I
Okay.
had auditioned for the casting director once before, or a few times before, but he had booked me I did like a stint on the reboot of 90210, and it was the same casting director. Um,
Oh.
and I could tell he was interested in me, and I got a call back, and I think who was going to direct the pilot, our first episode, was in my second audition. His name's David
Oh yeah,
Nutter.
that'll
And
tell you something.
yeah, I was like, oh wow, they're like actually interested in me. And then after that
Mhm.
second audition, he called me, the director, and more or less was like, I love you for this. The studio and the network going to ultimately decide who gets it, but I want to help you get this. So then I was like really trying to believe in myself, and um understand that I had a
Yeah.
chance of making this happen. And then it was me and two other guys that do what's called like testing for the network, where you go in front of like all the executives, and it's like
Right.
30 people in the room, and you do these scenes. So and that's a crazy experience, testing. It's like the most stressful experience for
I
auditioning for
can imagine.
TV. Yeah,
They're
you
like,
like you have to sign a
perform, and
contract
everybody
before you go
looks at
in.
you.
Yeah,
Oh my
it's, I mean, it's crazy. It's surreal. And it was a long process. I think all in the audition process for me was like 2 months. Um, so it was a lot of waiting. But then, when I found out, it was like I was probably naive in thinking like Arrow had already been on for a
yeah,
while,
yeah.
2 seasons, and this was good. My character showed up in Arrow, and it was supposed to get a spinoff, and it was the Flash, and I'm a comic book fan. It's a huge
Yeah.
Superman fan my whole life, and I understand
Okay.
like how big of a deal the Flash is, and I'm like, all right, well, Arrow's on for 2 years already. They're gonna do the Flash. Like, we'd have to really mess this up for it to not get, at least a handful of seasons.
Yeah.
So I was probably naive in thinking like after we shot the pilot and you sign a 6-year contract when you go in, and it doesn't mean it's going to go that long, but you
Right.
sign a 6-season contract. And I remember just thinking like, well, we'll go 6 at least because it's the Flash. And
I
and
like
that's
that.
yeah, I mean, it's
I
not how
like
TV works
that.
though. I mean, we're lucky to be on the air still. So it's probably naive
Okay,
of
well,
me,
so
but I
you
was never
you
worried
say
about getting
something.
canceled.
Yeah, and so that makes me okay. So I know that you mentioned on Instagram that you're closer to the end of the journey rather than the beginning of the Jersey journey. So
Hmm.
when I read that, I instantly thought, wait a minute, will there be a season 8? What's going on? So can we expect a season 8? Because that scared fans. I'm a by the way, and you said you're not a superhero. Kids really think you are. Like my son, you are a real life superhero to kids, just so you know. But are we
Cool.
closer? Like what do you mean by we're closer to the end? Don't scare us.
I mean, that's just, math. Like we are gonna, there is a season 8. We've already been renewed. So we've
Okay,
got,
beautiful.
this full season
Beautiful.
7 and then at least a season 8. And as of now, that's my current contract. So I don't know what
Okay.
they'll do after that, but I'm now contracted through 8 and we've been
Okay,
renewed.
listen,
So
everybody can rest easy. All right. Don't
yeah,
scare the people like that.
there's at
But
least a year and a
speaking of
half left.
that, okay, another year and a half left. But speaking of that, so we talked about you don't see yourself as a superhero, but do you find any similarities in yourself that you're trying to like when you're trying to portray the Flash? Like, do you see any similarities in yourself?
Yeah, I mean, acting in general, at least for me, it's like you have to bring as much of yourself to the role as possible. It's, especially a role like this. It's not like I'm trying to like disappear into some like chameleon type role where I'm playing this insane
Yeah.
character. It's yeah, I bring a lot of my myself to the role, especially when it comes to like when I'm having a little bit more fun with it and we're doing kind of some of the comedic stuff. And
Yeah.
because comedic timing is all just like, what's your comedic timing. So yeah, I mean, I bring a lot of myself to the role, and I used to really try to be a lot more like Barry, especially early on. With he was just always so optimistic and really, I don't know, just he was just, I think that's the biggest thing. He was always so optimistic, and I've never really, I'm more of a pessimist,
Yeah.
um, but I feel like it's interesting. I've talked about this recently where we've almost kind of gone in opposite directions, where he's had to deal with so much over the 7 years that I've been playing him that you really, for me at least, feel it, how much it's changed him and how much it weighs on him and how hard it is to be a leader, and not in just like, like being a leader of anything is hard enough, but like there's like life and death on the line for him like every single day. And I think that's really weighed on the character. And I think he's less optimistic in certain scenarios now than he used to be, where I feel like I've really worked on being more of an optimistic person and trying to be a little more present and in the moment. And it's funny that I've like, our paths kind of crossed and then went in opposite
Yeah.
directions in a way.
No, I like that. And so I'm going to even just take a little side road because you talked about it weighed heavy. And you're actually somebody that's spoken out and been very vocal about your battle with anxiety, your battle with
Hmm.
depression. And so in the sports industry, I can respect that a lot because in the sports industry, they almost told us not to embrace that because it was looked at as
Hmm.
a stigma and it was looked at as different things. But kids are going to struggle with that. So they need people in those positions to talk about it. What made you want to be vocal about your struggles?
Um, I think it's just in life in general, I've always been, I'm a pretty open book, like with people around me, and maybe to a fault even sometimes when I'm going through something, like I'll just talk about it with you, if we're sitting down together and we're talking, like
Mm.
I'll just, share things. And I think it took me a while being like a public person and being in talking with media or doing different things, which to be honest, like I don't do a lot of like interviews and stuff. And uh I think well, I got to a point where I was like, like I might as well be honest with everybody the way I'm honest with the people around me.
Yeah.
And with my social media too, I've always been pretty open, and I used to do it a lot, like use it a lot more than I use it these days, where I realized that, for my mental health, like one of the things that can be a trigger for me is social media. So
Hmm.
I like to use it so I can get out there and be honest and be open, but I also know for me I have to use it in doses, like I delete it
Yeah.
from my phone on a regular basis. I think we talked about this. So I was like, you're gonna
Yeah,
have
we
to email
did.
me because like, yeah, I don't always see DMs because like it'll be off my phone for like, weeks at a time sometimes. And I'll read that, like
Wow.
this week I needed it to like promote the premiere and to, do
Yeah.
whatever. So like I'll put it on my phone again. But I just know that I have to like manage it for me now. But yeah, just talking about mental health stuff. I mean, it's just always been a part of my life. So it's like if I'm going to share myself with, anybody, that's just a part of who I am. It's been a part of my journey. So
No, it's beautiful, and I need to thank you for your message that you posted during, this was during the time where we were all quarantined in the house, and I
mhm.
had opted out, and you wrote just this beautiful message on Instagram. And so that kind of is the same as the mental health, but at that time, it was a situation where, a lot of people were speaking out, Hollywood actors, actresses, and you were one of those that were very vocal about sharing your platform, using your platform. Why did you feel the need? I mean, and people might ask, you're a white man in America, so why did you feel the need to use your platform and be an ally?
Well, I think honestly, what was going on for me in that moment too is like, and again, I kind of share my journey, was like, and I was embarrassed to a certain degree too, that 30 at the time, and the amount of discovery that I was having as like realizing what privilege really was for me. And part of it for me was I didn't have to know a lot of the things that were going on because
Yeah.
of the privilege that existed in my life. And I think even growing up in Virginia, I had this notion that like racism was, for the most part, a thing of the past and not something that really existed in the capacity that it still exists today, not only systematically, but just like in day-to-day lives. And I think I talked about it in some of my posts. Like I was feeling a level of shame and embarrassment of like, man, I really have allowed a curtain to be up for me because it wasn't something that was like really affecting me. And I have all kinds of Black friends and Black mentors and people of color in my life where like, I think I just had allowed myself to think like, well, that didn't exist now today and for those people, or else I would have known about it because it would have been in my face. And it's like, no, because
Right.
it just wasn't a part of my daily life. And I just felt like sharing kind of some of that discovery, and like, because I'm not like an activist or like, or I leave that to the real activists that like you that are doing incredible important work. And
Thank
I
you.
just felt like discovering or sharing some of my discovery, I guess. And because I know that there's people that are and had the same thought process as me, that
No,
need to
definitely. And
understand
I
it's
mean, people
okay
like
to get
me,
there now.
no, and people like me, that's everything because you had a platform and you used it. You don't have to be an activist to just support. And so you did that.
Right.
And so I want to also piggyback on that and ask you, how do you feel about the new Batwoman? We have a new Batwoman and
Yeah.
Javicia. So I want to know, like, yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Because I was super excited. We all turned up for that. It was the right
Yeah.
time and moment and everything for that.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, she just personally too. I mean, she's just like really cool. I've only met her a couple times now. I mean, we spoke almost immediately when she was cast, I reached out to her and we were talking, on Instagram and stuff. And it's funny because she was asking like to pick my brain a little bit about the experience and like what it's been like for me. And I was sharing some of my experience with her. And then she reaches out like a month or so later after she's been filming. And she's like, so you didn't mention how terrible the cowl is, the mask that we have to wear. Like she's like, you just kind of like
Oh.
left that tidbit out. It's like
And y'all
I
have to wear
didn't
it for
want to
like
like,
hours.
yeah, because you're like in it. Like they put you in it, and like especially for me, for the first 9 episodes, I was glued in it. They were like, it was the only way
Oh
they said they
my.
could do it. It was just like glued to my face. So yeah, that's she just something that made me laugh. I was like, yeah, so I wasn't really my focus, I guess, when we were talking about the
When I
experience.
was running things down, costume and wardrobe did not
Yeah,
come to mind. I was thinking
because you
beats and
don't
different things.
exactly, but you don't. It's such a big part of your daily life when you're shooting a show like this. Like the suit is you're in it for full days, and the mask is brutal, and it really changes your performance and your experience throughout the day, obviously. But no,
I'm
she's
sure.
really cool. She's really really good energy. Um, yeah, I mean, we unfortunately won't do any crossovers this year because of COVID. So
Mm,
like, I'm sure
yeah.
otherwise I'd be on that set at some point this year, getting to work with her. I'm hoping next year that's a thing again.
Yes,
Uh,
it gotta happen.
so
It's gotta happen. That's
yeah,
so
yeah.
dope. And
No, I'm
by the way, you
happy for
talked
her
about
though.
me too, but and you talked about energy. And so congratulations. You have a ball of energy on the way.
Yeah,
Congratulations to you and your wife. And I want to
thank
make sure
you.
I say, how do you say her name properly?
It's just LA, like the city. It's
Oh,
she.
okay, so cool. So
Yeah,
congrats to you in LA. You guys have a baby on the way. What does it feel like? You're about to be responsible for another human being.
yeah. No, it's crazy. I mean, it was. She's talked about it a lot publicly, where it's it was kind of tough for us to get pregnant. So that was kind of a journey. And so it was amazing when we finally found out we were. And it was emotional moment. And then it was kind of like quickly that excitement kind of burst
Yeah.
and dissipated, just because she was really really sick for the first
Oh.
couple trimesters, like more than like normal morning sickness. So it was really really tough. And it was hard to remember like, oh, we're expecting, like, you're pregnant, this is so exciting. It was just like, how
Yeah.
can I help? And she was miserable, and just getting through that first couple months was brutal. And she's thankfully kind of like turned a corner now, and we can and get a little more excited about what's to come. And I'm reading all the books I can, which I'm sure will be rendered irrelevant once there's an actual human that I'm
Yeah.
holding. But it's exciting. It's
Well,
scary
you
and exciting.
listen. So hearing that story, you better get her a really good push gift. Okay. Like that's my advice to you. You better get her a nice push gift for all the pain and struggle that she's been through to bring this
100%.
beautiful. Yes. And one last thing I want to ask you about. You have a new Netflix drama coming out called Rescued by Ruby.
Yeah.
Tell me about
Yeah, it's gonna shoot. I'm up in Vancouver right now shooting Flash, and it's gonna shoot up here, which was kind of the only way I could do a hiatus project this year.
that. Yeah.
Our hiatus is always, it's like 2.5 months usually between seasons,
Okay.
and this year it's like 5 weeks or something, because
So it's
we're
short.
wrapping later than usual because of COVID, and then we're gonna start when we usually start. So I'm gonna pop over to Vancouver Island and shoot in Victoria. um it's a true story about this rescue dog Ruby, and her canine officer Daniel O'Neill. And it's just, I mean, a really good family story, honestly. Like my
Love it.
family, we're huge like pet people in my family, like, and all
Oh yeah,
three of my
I was
dogs.
supposed to say that. You were already a dog dad, and now you're gonna be a
Yeah,
human dad. That's what I was
yeah,
supposed to
yeah.
say. Yeah.
I got one who's like out right here.
Oh,
He's
where is he? Oh, I can kind of see an ear.
no,
Let's
I don't
see
think
if I
he's, yeah,
can.
he's tiny. He's like,
Hi. Oh my goodness. He's like
he's
he's like, don't bother me. I'm
chilling.
chilling.
He's an old man. He's like 14, 15. We're not really sure, but
Oh my
I've had him a
gosh.
while. And my mom is like, my mom always has like at least 3 animals. Like she just huge advocate for like rescue animals, you know.
I love
So that was
that.
kind of what spoke to me the most about this story is Ruby's a dog who had been returned to the shelter like 5 times or something because she was such high energy and families couldn't handle her. And there was this woman at the shelter who was just adamant about getting her placed in a family. And Daniel is kind of similar in where he's really high energy and he has a hard time focusing, and which is not apparently the temperament um, for the canine force, I guess. Like they're usually really calm personalities, and
Right.
this guy and this dog found each other and really like were kind of kindred spirits and balanced each other, and it became like an amazing rescue team together. So it's just kind of about that journey, and I knew my mom would love it, and I didn't want to tell her about it really early on because like you never know if something's going to work out. And I finally told her about the project and like gave her a log line of the script, explained it to her, you know, in Spark Notes version in like 5 minutes,
And
and
she
she was
lost
like
it.
she was sobbing at the end. Like it's a really emotional ending to the story, in like a happy
Oh,
way.
yeah.
Because I know dog movies can be tough where like, you know, usually the dog dies in the end, and that's not
Yes.
the case with this movie.
Yes.
um, it's not the case. This guy and this
Thank
dog are still
goodness.
working together in real life. So it's a really pretty beautiful story, and I think just going to be a good feel good family film in a time where like I feel like movies like that are, you know, more than welcomed.
Oh, 100%. Especially in this time, everybody will take all the
Exactly.
feel good movies that we can get. Grant,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you, thank you so much for hopping on here with me and just walking through your story, because I love for people, people always see the person on the screen, and that goes for athletes, actors, any entertainers. But I love for people to see that we kind of go through the same struggles that everyone else goes through. We had, when we were younger, we kind of were just driven. And I try to always
Hmm.
talk to kids about lean into whatever you like. It's okay. It's almost like our younger generation. I have a 13-year-old. They're like embarrassed to fail so much that they don't even want to try. And so I always tell
Right.
people, like, you have to try, put yourself out there. Failure is okay. We struggle with mental health as well. And so I thank you for being so transparent, because that's important to young kids.
Yeah. And before we go, I just want to congratulate you on like everything you're doing, your ownership role with the dream. It's so dope. And
Thank
just everything
you.
else you've got going on. It's super inspiring. And it was an honor
Thank
to be on
you.
here. Honestly, like I was worried to come on because you've had so many people that have been so incredible and inspiring with
You
interesting
are
stories. And
incredible, Grant.
I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna bring of value to like, you know. So it was an honor to be asked though. So I had to say yes.
No, you're incredible. And that's why I already got your address. I'm sending LA. I'm sending you. I'm going to have to send the baby a little dream shirt. Like, we're going to have a little baby onesie coming through. But no, seriously, thank you, thank you, thank you for joining me on Remotely Renee.
Thanks for having me.